Okay. And we're back. My phone died. So, you know, the whole thing came to a screeching halt, unfortunately. Let's see what we can do. Um, let's check the titles first of all. Okay, DeFi 101 Introduction to DeFi for Beginners. Yeah, I think I fixed the title. So, looking good. Let's check Twitch. Let's check the old Twitch. Experiencing a slight delay. Sweet, back to basics. There we go. Okay. Yeah, we did it. We're back in business. Okay. Let's let's get back to our lesson. Doop de doop de doo. Okay. So we were talking about hashing, and we were talking about how you just bring in an arbitrary set of data, and it produces a random string of characters, and that's hashing. Um, and why that's useful is that A, it's unpredictable, and then B, it is consistent. So you have this consistency for this random data. Okay, so backing up to what we were talking about before, which was encrypting the transaction or block data as that message. So and then hashing that encrypted data, right? And so that becomes that's the process of signing. Okay, so what you can do now is verify that signed data. So you can verify that those random bytes of data were encrypted with that private key. Okay, so you have this. So you hash the message and then you encrypt it, right? And then you can use the encrypted value to decrypt it, right? So, or you can use the private key to decrypt. Um, sorry, you can use the public key to decrypt it, and if you get the hash you were expecting, then the um, the message is considered verified, right? So if you take the message, the original message, and hash it, it should match the decrypted uh, signature. It might be a little complicated. Maybe this is not a crypto basics talk. It's my first live stream in a long time, folks. Okay, I might get a little cray with my crypto talk. Okay, and this might get a little advanced on accident. It's not intentional. I promise. But I'm going to try to be a good teacher or a better teacher. Um, okay. Keep it clean here. What did I say? I forget. I hope I didn't. I was always trying to keep it clean on like Thanksgiving and whatnot. I feel like I have to like censor myself. I don't feel like I swear that much. Maybe I do. All right. Anyway, here we go. All right. So we've got our phone plugged in. It's charging. I have my web browser turned off so it doesn't crash my computer. So we should be good to go for now. Should be able to take it all the way, in it for the long run. Okay, not clean as the chat is non-existent. Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess I could sort of just cuss up a storm. No, I'm not going to do that. Oop, I accidentally opened Uber Eats instead of Twitch. I don't know how to manage the chats in one like unified area. Is that on Restream? Anyway, I'll have to look into that more. Okay, getting back into it. Let's just keep talking. So, you have the signature and that, that signs the that's sort of how you prove that you took some kind of action. That's essentially why signatures are important, is that they prove that you took some kind of action, and they hold you accountable, so much so that signatures actually are why you lose your money when you do. So if you sign something with your private key and that gets broadcast to the network will accept that on your behalf, even if you didn't sign it and somebody else did. Okay, that's why it's so important to not accidentally give away your private key, because they will just go ahead. Let's see if this will fix things. We lost video, folks. Okay, we're back. Oh, oh, I think that we're going to get... My battery's freaking out right now. It does not like this. Display brightness is a bit bright for this. Let's try to turn that down and see if it'll start charging. I really need to get another laptop. This laptop has really been through it. I need to run this off of a desktop computer. I think that having these little quirks during the live stream kind of has like a late night with Conan O'Brien. 1 second. I'm going to try to unplug the microphone, see if that does it. Okay. I think we're in business. Let's see here. Hello. Okay, it's working. All right. We're back in business. Okay. So, signatures are a huge thing. They can hold you accountable to everything that I don't want to say hold you accountable. I would say that they're the final word. in most cases, in every case except YadaCoin, they're the final word in what gets accepted into the blockchain. If you have a valid signature, then that proves that your private key was indeed used to sign that message. And so whatever that message was, it says that you did it. That to the blockchain proves without a doubt that you did that. Okay? So a lot of people say there's a lot of confusion, I think, about like double spends and whether or not somebody can actually, you know, spend money on your behalf somehow. And that's actually not how that is carried out. The private key signature um, mechanisms are actually quite secure, so long as your private key does not get leaked. Now, that's not including quantum computers, because quantum computers can take a private key and or take a public key and reverse it into a private key, and then of course they can sign transactions on your behalf and steal your money. But there is no quantum computer currently available that can do that, but it is something that people are planning ahead for, and something that our wallet um, does mitigate some risk. So we talked about hashing, signatures. We didn't talk about Merkle trees. We're not going to talk about Merkle trees. It's just more data that goes into the signatures and hashing and stuff like that. I think that's more like advanced stuff. Wallet custody models. So I think briefly saying the wallet custody models, there's either self custody or I don't know. I guess it'd be called just custody, self custody. Let's look. Basically, someone either holds your keys for you or you hold your own keys. Okay? So when you hold your own keys, that's called self custody. Okay? And when someone else holds your keys for you, they are your custodian. They are your key custodian. And again, not your keys, not your crypto. So when you have your keys on an exchange, they are your custodian. So if you have your keys on Kraken or Coinbase or any of those services, they hold your keys. Okay, so they can freeze your money. They can take your money if they want to, or if they need to, or some issue comes up. They can deny you access to your money. Okay, that's one of the issues with having a custodian. And then I guess one of the other ones would be if they are hacked, if they experience some large data breach or some type of um, major hack, then your keys could be compromised in that hack. And when your keys are compromised, again, they can sign the transactions for the total amount that you hold in your wallet, and they can send it to their own wallet. And that's a place where you can't control that. So that's how they steal your money. So it's really not advised to have your decentralized finance money stored in a custodial wallet like a Coinbase or a Kraken or something like that. You want to keep the bulk of your money in self custody, okay, so that you're not vulnerable to these kinds of attacks, right? Because if you keep your wallet on a cold storage, like self custody, right? Cold storage or air gapped or anything like that, it basically just means it doesn't have access to there's no outside internet access, right? So no one can actually access your wallet from the internet. um, and with cold storage, they technically can't even access it at all. It's a lot of times it's just stored on it's just you're just receiving money on a piece of paper essentially. It's um how do I give you an example of this? So, um, cold storage is essentially a wallet you don't use. You don't have it on a hardware device. You don't have it on your phone. You don't have it on a web wallet. You don't have it in MetaMask or Trust Wallet or any of these other um, apps. You in cold storage, you generated your private key completely offline and got your wallet address completely offline, and then somehow scanned a QR code or copied the address and pasted it somewhere so that you can receive funds to it, right? So uh, that is in stark contrast to keeping your funds on, say, Coinbase, where someone could hack Coinbase and then steal your wallet. So your wallet's really just a sitting duck. You know, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. It may take years. It may take a decade. You never know when it can happen. But um, exchanges get hacked all the time. Usually, it's smaller exchanges, and usually, this is largely true that it happens to smaller exchanges, but um, anything can happen, and you don't know if their insurance is going to cover, your lost funds depending on how much you have and all that stuff. So it's really just not advised to keep that on there, especially when keeping it on cold storage or some kind of air gapped hardware device is so much more secure, just because they don't have internet access to be able to access your keys. Your keys are, literally in the world. They're in analog space and they're not connected to the internet, right? So there's no way for somebody to like hack that wallet when they don't have a digital channel or like a way to interact with your wallet in a way that they could extract your private key. Okay, so it's much safer to do self custody for your wallet in many different ways. You know, so if you guys have any more questions about that, I would love to go on and on about it. Let me check the chats real quick. I need to get this on X, I think. I need to have some kind of like live going on X. We have merch for sale, everybody. YadaCoin. Just kidding, it's not for sale. But if you want one, let me know. Maybe I can hook you up. See? I got the YadaCoin back here. I don't know if you can see it. Got the big Y logo back there. In case you want to stun on your family at Thanksgiving or at Christmas, or whatever holiday there is. Okay. We've got 2 viewers on Twitch. We've been at it for 20 minutes. Okay. So, key DeFi categories. So, with so we've talked about wallet custody. So now we're going to talk about Web3. So let me change my screen text real quick. Okay. All right. So intro to Web3. All right. So let's talk about Web3 a little bit. So wallets, hot and cold, and hardware, and all this other jazz. So we just talked about hardware and air gap. So our wallet that we have is actually air gapped. Okay. So what does that mean? That means that this device cannot be accessed over Bluetooth. It can't be accessed over Wi-Fi. It doesn't have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth hardware on it. It's not capable of doing that, and it doesn't transmit any data over USB or receive data over USB unless you're updating the firmware or something like that. But in its normal operation, it does not transmit or receive data over USB. So it never actually interacts with a internet connected device other than when you're updating the firmware. So it doesn't use that for its normal operation. It doesn't depend on it for operation at all. So with air gapped wallets, you can't lose your private key that way, right? And we can get into all of that stuff later on, but that's just basic. That's kind of a good example of like an air gapped wallet. It's just that there's no data transmission over the internet to and from the device. What you're actually doing is like scanning a QR code that's displayed on this screen here. So this is our hardware device. It's a key provisioning device, and so it can provision keys for you to use on various hardware or various wallet platforms like Trust Wallet and Trezor and MetaMask and things like that. And it can also work with our own wallet that allows you to do secure wrapping and all that jazz, which I will get into eventually. But I want to get into a lot of the basics here, just to kind of catch everybody up and get everybody up to speed. And we're gonna be doing a lot of this. This is just gonna be like we're gonna be doing a lot of intro and basics, and any questions that you have. We're just going to be answering them. Just trying to get this whole DeFi thing into the hands of as many people as possible. Okay, so we did gas fees. We talked about that. We talked about wallets, hot and cold, and hardware and explorers. Yeah, so explorers are interesting. So that's something that's different than traditional finance. So explorers are, I think, probably one of the, it's like the heart and soul um of DeFi, right? It really is the heart and soul of DeFi, because what an explorer is, it's essentially a place where you can go where you can audit the blockchain. Essentially, you can do little audits on the blockchain to verify information. And the cool thing about explorers is that you can go anywhere where an explorer is present, but the data will be the same on every explorer for a given blockchain. So I can go to blockchain.info for Bitcoin. I can go to blockinfo.com or whatever. Any website that has a Bitcoin explorer, I can go there and all the information will be the same because the blockchain information is the same. So I can get all of these independent sources for information about a given blockchain, and they'll all be the same. And that just speaks to the independently verifiable nature of blockchain. You don't have to go to, let's say like Bank of America has their own like ledger. Then you would go to Bank of America for, all of your information about that ledger, right? Um, in decentralized finance, you have a distributed ledger, and you can go to any part of that network to verify that ledger, right? So it's a it's a way of breaking down the monopoly, essentially, and having a system that can scale uh, that large. Something that can compete with something like a bank. Okay, so explorers, basically you can just search transaction IDs, you can search block hashes, block heights, just like, so block heights are just the block number. So it starts at 0, and every block that's inserted after that gets a number, and that number is the block height. So if there's 2 blocks inserted into a blockchain, then you would say the block height is, well, it would be 1 if it was 0 indexed, but you could say the block height is 2 if there's 2 blocks. Okay. Confirmations, I think another confusing term, but confirmations is just how many blocks are on top of a given block, right? So if you have a block that mines your coin, then you have another block that builds on top of that block, then that's called a confirmation. So if a block builds on top of the block your transaction is included in, then that is called a block confirmation. So just remember that one. That's an important thing, because certain vendors and services will require a certain number of confirmations. So the nature of blockchain is a competition, right? And so the very, very tip of the blockchain, the top height of the blockchain, isn't always 100% determined, right? So you can have a few nodes that think that this is the latest block, and you can actually have a few nodes that think this is the latest block. And they will synchronize pretty quickly. They'll decide which block required the most difficulty to generate, and then it will adopt that block. And but yeah, in that time that they are, deciding which one, that's a time when you don't want to make any decisions based on the ledger that is in its current state. So you want to have at least 6 blocks, at least in Bitcoin's. Well, it used to be 6 blocks. I think it's more like 2 or 3 now, but I see a lot of people doing like 2 or 3. But you want like 2 or 3 block confirmations for any given transaction before you accept it as, over and done and fully in the blockchain and not going anywhere. So that's block confirmations. So what is DeFi? Let's update our screen text. Okay. What is DeFi? So DeFi, let's think about, there is centralized finance, or sorry, there's centralized exchanges and there are decentralized exchanges. Okay. So a centralized exchange allows you to, so it has like an order book, and it has a list of users that want to buy, and then it has a list of users that want to sell, and they create orders, and then that becomes the order book. and the price is basically determined on those hard values of, you know, what they sold it for and how much they sold and all of that stuff, right? But a decentralized exchange works a bit differently. And because of the nature of running a decentralized exchange, using gas fees and things like that, it would be prohibitively expensive to have an order book, and it just wouldn't be very efficient. So, what they do is they have these things called liquidity pools. And the liquidity pools is basically a pairing, just like on a centralized exchange, of one asset versus another. And the asset that um, you're pairing it with, you deposit into a smart contract, and the ratio of the two assets determines the price, right? So if I added one YadaCoin and one Bitcoin to a liquidity pool, then I'm effectively saying that YadaCoin is the same price as Bitcoin, right? So that would effectively price YadaCoin at the same price as Bitcoin. Okay. So from there, you would have people buying from that liquidity pool, right? And in that case, they would um, they would either submit their transactions to this decentralized finance smart contract, and then that would subtract or add the given values from the liquidity pool, and that is called a swap, right? So if you have, let's say you have Yada in this case, and you want to get some Bitcoin, then you would go to the liquidity pool on Pancake Swap for Yada versus Bitcoin, and um, you would just tell them how much Bitcoin you want, and you would um, say this is how many Yada coin you want to exchange for it. And then the smart contract would automatically adjust the amounts in the liquidity pool and give you your Bitcoin. So that's essentially how it works. And the again, the ratio of um, the ratio of the two assets determines the price, right? So again, like if I had a liquidity pool with $1 and I had a and then I had one Yada coin in there as well, then I would be saying that one Yada coin is worth uh, $1, right? And so the way that kind of like strays the price can then fluctuate is if, you know, a bunch of people start adding a bunch of Yada coins to the liquidity pool, um, essentially selling them in exchange for this dollar that I have in the liquidity pool, then um, suddenly there's going to be a lot more Yada coins, right? And the amount of the US dollar is going to go down, right? The number of available US dollars in the liquidity pool are going to decrease. So it's going to cause the price of that asset, in this case the US dollar, to increase, you know, pretty dramatically. And it's all just calculated automatically. So it's called a constant product. So you have, you know, this calculation continuously going as the ratio continues to widen, right? As there's a bigger spread, right? And you have concepts like, you know, market depth. You know, if the liquidity pool is not very well funded, let's say it's, you know, let's say there's just, like I said, like $1 on each, then you're going to have some very, very big slippage for smaller amounts of money deposited, or for small amounts swapped. So if you swap like if there was like one Yada coin and $1 in the liquidity pool, and then you go and sell 100 Yada for um for that dollar, then the price is going to dramatically um, rise, and so you're gonna have, that's called slippage. So you have when you don't have a lot of market depth, that's a big concern in DeFi, right? So you want a liquidity pool that has a lot of market depth, which just means that there's a lot of money in the liquidity pool. So let's say you want like, you know, $10,000 or $100,000 or $1 million or more of each asset, and which means that when you make your trade, if it's not anywhere close to those values, then you're not going to have that much slippage. Okay, so and I guess that constant product is called an automated market maker. Automatic market maker. Anyway, so DeFi can do pretty much everything that a bank can do. It can do lending, it can do borrowing, it can do escrow, it can do yield aggregators, it can do derivatives and synthetics, it can do stable coins. Stable coins are just basically one-to-one peg with any given like fiat, for example. So you have USDT, which is like which is the T is for tether. So you're like tethering the value of this digital asset to the US dollar. So they're doing various things to stabilize the value of that coin so that it always ends up equaling $1, right? So you'll always be able to exchange one USDT for $1 in real United States dollars. Okay. And that's where it gets into on ramps and off ramps. Okay. So on ramps and off ramps are really the meat and potatoes of DeFi. That's where everybody is curious. It's like, how do I turn this stuff into actual money? How do I make this into money? I have all these tokens and goofy meme coins and all this stuff, but like, how do I actually make this into real money? How do I turn this into cash? How can I buy a Lambo with this? And what it is it's all off ramps and it's all on ramps and off ramps. So on ramps and off ramps are basically just centralized exchanges, right? They're the ones that are government sanctioned. They are these places that are regulated and cooperate with the governments in that particular fiat currency to allow you to exchange that fiat currency for a digital asset. So, like Coinbase or Kraken, these are on ramps and off ramps. And so, an on ramp, as you might guess, is how you can go from US dollars or some other fiat currency to USDT. And when you have USDT, suddenly you're connected into this entire DeFi ecosystem, right? You have this entire DeFi ecosystem that you can trade and do all these different things that I mentioned, like lending, borrowing, yield aggregating, derivatives, synthetics, stablecoins, all this other stuff, right? So you can do all of that after you do an on ramp, right? And so once you do all that, you do all your finance stuff, your DeFi stuff, and make your gains. You put assets against each other, and you make your financial decisions, and you make some kind of loss or profit, and then finally you're ready to bring it back into the real world and spend it. So you need an off ramp, right? And again, that's going to be the same players as an on ramp. It's going to be Kraken, Coinbase, all these other different ones, and that's going to let you get um, U.S. dollars or some other type of fiat directly for your digital asset. So they're going to let you sell like Bitcoin or Ethereum or Binance coin for US dollars, not USDT, which you could, but that would keep you in DeFi world. But they have markets on their systems that you can exchange directly for USD, okay, the actual fiat. And so once you have sold for that fiat, now you are able to withdraw into your bank account. And so that's how it gets from that ledger to an actual, government sanctioned, regulated fiat ledger. And that's where you can actually use it with your Visa, MasterCard, Discover, whatever it is, that integrates with all that stuff. It's your money. You get your money. So those are on ramps and off ramps. Okay. Smart contracts, we went into that. But we could do a lot more. We talked about liquidity. We talked about liquidity pools. We talked about. Oh, one other thing I should have mentioned about decentralized exchanges is that you keep control of your money the entire time. That's the other main advantage, is that you don't have to deposit your money into an exchange account or wallet to be able to trade. So you can trade directly from your self-custody wallet, which is a far superior architecture in terms of risk. So a lot of folks are, they're risk averse, and they tend to shy away from things like DeFi. But the truth is that DeFi is actually much less risky. When you think about how big these cyber attacks can be and how big you can actually lose if something like that were to happen to one of these institutions. So you can keep complete control over your digital assets using something like our hardware wallet, and you can avoid any of the risk that is involved with exchanging tokens. So let's complete the whole entire picture here. Let's say you have let's say this is like a complete DeFi picture, like how you would actually go from your US dollar to going into the DeFi world, playing around a little bit, and then going back into the US dollar, right? So you would go to, say, Coinbase or something like that. You would deposit some money in US dollars into Coinbase from there. And then that would be your on-ramp. And then you would trade for USDT, or you would trade for Bitcoin or something like that on one of their markets. And then you would send it to one of these wallets. And that would enable you to manage your assets on a platform or in a wallet that allows you to swap, right? So you send your USDT, your Bitcoin, or whatever to one of these wallets that manages that asset. And then from there, you can swap whatever asset you want for the asset that you have. And so, boom, you're in the DeFi world. So you can also do, again, things like, you can get involved in the yield aggregators. You can do the lending and the borrowing, and you can do all of these things on all of these decentralized finance platforms with those digital assets that you converted your US dollars into, right? So you basically just created these digital assets from US dollars, and now you can go and have fun and create value from it, right? And hopefully gain a profit. And then once you do that, Then you again sign another transaction and send those digital assets back to an off ramp, right? So again, you're sending it back to your Coinbase wallet and or Kraken or whatever, and then uh, once you receive the funds on that platform, then you go to one of the markets, whichever depending on whichever digital asset you have, then you trade that digital asset for US dollars in one of their trading markets, and then you withdraw it to your bank account. And so hopefully you end up with more US dollars than you started with when you did the on ramp. That's kind of the whole idea behind it, is to generate value, generate a profit, have fun. Maybe want to use a utility coin. Maybe you want to buy storage. Maybe you want to buy CPU power or CPU time, or you want to do any. There's so many different kinds of services out there. YadaCoin lets you secure your wallet. Maybe you want to wrap your tokens in a secure security model for long-term storage. That's something that you can do with our model. You don't have to, invest or gamble, as some say, with your money. You can just secure it, or you can use it to pay for services. It's a really huge, big wide world out there as far as DeFi goes. And I didn't even really touch on utility coins that much. So there's a lot going on here. Yeah, they are missing out. But I didn't announce this live stream. I didn't really know how it was gonna come together. I knew there was gonna be some hiccups technically. Dang, Chemical Soldier, is that I guess that's your setup, huh? That's what it looks like at night, right? I'm on the screen. That's a riot. Hold on. Something's going on here. Oh, I think my camera turned off. 1 second. I'm gonna change the battery. Ooh. All right. Ooh. Okay, back in business. Let's get these batteries. These batteries, baby. What is DeFi? All right. How long have we been at this? Mining help. Oh, okay, that's fine. Do. Twitch. Are we back in the game? Yeah, Mount Gox. Yep. People are still waiting for their money on Mount Gox. Not gonna lie, I have a nano ledger locked in a safe. Yeah, exactly. Yep. I like holding my own keys. Yep. You're good. Okay, cool. Good, 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 good. All good things to hear. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. Well, let me look here. This has been going how long? 45, 49 minutes? So I've been at this about an hour before the last crash. So we have 2 viewers on Twitch. Just trying to test the chat here. Okay. All right, y'all. Let me think here. Stable coins, decentralized exchanges, order books, AMMs. Yeah, perpetual markets, limit orders. Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff we can get into. 1 inch, yeah, DEX aggregators, Paraswap. Yeah, there's tons of stuff we can get into, taking like trading routes and swap routes, collateralization, interest rate curves, health factors. Yeah, there's tons of stuff that we can get into. So yeah, let's just save that for tomorrow and we can jump into that next time. All right. Thank you for sticking around. Thanks, Chemical Soldier, for helping out, helping us debug some of our issues here. Thanks for being an early supporter of our wallet. All right. Thanks, Schaefer, for coming in, chatting a little bit. And yeah, see you next time. Cheers.